Joining us now, Democratic Congressman of Maryland, Jamie Raskin. He is the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. You've been very vocal as well about the release of these files. You even sent a letter to House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan asking him to hold a hearing on this and subpoena some of Trump's top officials if necessary. Have you gotten a response? Do you think the pressure is doing anything at this point?
Well, we've had no direct official response yet, but Chairman Jordan has said that Attorney General Bondi will be coming in. He's clearly feeling the heat, and so will Kash Patel. And he said before the end of the year, originally, I believe, or at least I was told that he said in another TV interview that it would be in September. So we are going to be in an August recess. And if Attorney General Bondi comes in early in September, even if he says, she will be available for questioning on other subjects, we'll take that. We need the opportunity for her to be directly questioned. And I hope that she will arrive with the transmission of all of the files in the Epstein case, exactly what she promised, including the client list, which she said was sitting on her desk.
Congressman, I'm curious if you've had conversations with Senator Ron Wyden as well. He spent the last 3 years digging into the financial network here, found that 4 banks waited until his arrest to flag $1.5 billion in suspicious transactions. He wants all that made public as well. What do you think we could learn by following the money trail?
Well, we could learn a lot. Obviously, it was extremely expensive to be running this nationwide, perhaps international human trafficking and sexual abuse ring and scheme and follow the money. And so I'm glad that Senator Wyden has been working on that for the last several years. I've not seen any of those SARS reports, but the country is familiar with SARS reports because it's exactly what we learned about and we got to see in the Hunter Biden investigation, and obviously with much smaller stakes than what we're talking about now.
Congressman, what do you make of Congressman Massey and Congressman Ro Khanna's legislation to try and get documents revealed? Do you think there's any chance it could potentially be successful if all the Democrats, with a handful of Republicans who are in this moment willing to kind of defy Donald Trump and actually push through to try and get something out?
Oh, we're headed for a huge success on this one because all of the Democrats are determined to see that all of the files are released. At least 8 or 9 Republicans are joining Congressman Massey and Congressman Khanna's resolution, along with all the Democrats. So the leadership, Speaker Johnson obviously doesn't want this to go forward because they're still trying to help Donald Trump keep the lid on things. But the discharge resolution is an opportunity to dislodge and discharge a resolution which the majority is sitting on. And so as soon as it becomes ripe next week, and I believe that will be Wednesday, then if we all go and sign our names to it, it will be forced out of its hold and onto the floor of the House of Representatives. Some people are saying that Speaker Johnson, at Trump's behest, will just send us home and start the August recess several days early rather than have us vote on that. But there's a strong bipartisan consensus, I think, to move forward and to get to the bottom of this. We've had enough cover-ups in this thing.
Congressman James Carville, the Democratic strategist, earlier this year had made an argument that Democrats should just play possum, essentially, and let MAGA and Republicans in general sort of tear themselves apart. Is there an argument, do you think, for doing that here in this circumstance, that basically Trump can say, oh, this is a Democratic-led effort to crucify him, et cetera, and potentially Democrats putting pressure on this issue when Republicans are already so divided on it might give Trump a scapegoat, essentially?
I mean, that's a point about political gamesmanship and not about criminal justice and the rule of law. And all of the Democrats, and I think a lot of the Republicans, are serious about ending human trafficking and the sexual abuse of minors, whether it's in a church, a school, a university like Michigan State or Ohio State. And we take this very seriously. So We obviously cannot allow this kind of activity to be going on at the highest levels. And of course, it is Donald Trump and Pam Bondi and team which put this on the national radar. And it is Donald Trump who's been insisting there's a much broader conspiracy. And if there is, let's get it out there. Then there should be nothing to hide. Obviously, we want to redact the names of the victims. In these cases, there were hundreds of victims in just, what was taking place with Epstein and Maxwell alone, but conceivably more than 1,000 victims. So we want to protect them, but we also want to protect them against predators that are still out there. And we reject the idea that because it's allegedly the rich and powerful who are on the list on Pam Bondi's desk or who've been named in these various investigations, that we should trust them just to reform their own ways. If there are predators out there, then we need to know about it.
But you had several years before Trump came back into office to demand these files be released, and you didn't. I mean, I'm very sympathetic to all of those objectives that you just mentioned, protecting those who are victims of potential sex trafficking.
Well, I know that's the big.
Go on.
I hear you. Like, that's the big Republican talking point. Why didn't the Democrats do anything during the Biden administration? It would, first of all, we don't view it as the Biden administration under the Department of Justice or the Trump administration. At least in the old days, we just thought it was the Department of Justice. But in any event, if we're going to view it through that partisan lens, it was under the Biden Department of Justice that Maxwell was successfully prosecuted and sentenced to 20 years in jail. It was after that that Donald Trump began the drumbeat for releasing the files in the course of the presidential campaign. And because he was Epstein's best friend for more than a decade and is named in lots of different contexts related to these events, we're trusting him now that he knows something was going on. He doesn't want to talk about it anymore, but he made it the centerpiece of his campaign. He wasn't promising to throw 17 million people off Medicaid, but he was promising to release the Epstein files. And we say, great, we have nothing to be afraid of. If you want to view it in partisan terms, I've not had a single Democrat say, no, don't release that. My name's going to be in there. We've not heard that from anybody. So if they're Republicans saying that, that's their problem. We have no problem for transparency. And the other stuff is just political noise and a distraction from whether or not we are going to keep to the promise that they made to the American people.
You're also an attorney. Can we get your thoughts on Trump's new defamation suit filed in Florida, seeking $10 billion in damages, going after the Wall Street Journal, then the reporters who reported out this new element here, this alleged birthday card that kind of adds a new dimension to their potential friendship and relationship here. What do you make of this lawsuit, whether Trump has a case here or not? And if he doesn't, what do you think this lawsuit is actually about?
Well, Donald Trump is famously litigious. He's brought more than 3,000 lawsuits in his life, and he feels that, because he's got an army of lawyers and deep pockets, he can intimidate anybody by just suing them. He tried to do it to Harvard University and other colleges. That's failed. He's tried to do it to a bunch of law firms like Perkins Coie and Wilmer Hale. That's failed in those cases. And so obviously the Wall Street Journal is not afraid. The standard that Donald Trump has to meet is he's got to prove falsity, that this was actually not written by him and they had knowledge of the falsity, or at least were recklessly indifferent as to the veracity of the allegations. And the Wall Street Journal is standing up strong and tall on this, saying, no way, we're completely behind our story. So if Donald Trump wants to go through the discovery process, and if he wants to be deposed about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, maybe he gets somebody on his staff to write the birthday letters and so on. Did he ever try to revoke it before or dissociate himself from it before? I mean, after all of the photographs we've seen of them together and all the videotape and all the evidence we have of their relationship, I think people are going to be suspicious of the idea that somehow somebody completely concocted a birthday message for his 50th birthday, put it in Donald Trump's name. Trump never said anything about it, never tried to distance himself from it, but now suddenly is saying it's not him. But, you also wonder, well, why is this big enough for him to even bring a lawsuit against the Wall Street